Everyone hits a bump in the road. What do you do with it? Be inspired as we explore the ways people experience, navigate, and manage the ups and downs and twists and turns in this road trip called life. Welcome to another episode of Bump in the Road. The basic podcast is always free. We also have a premium subscription called Bump 2 that lets you listen in on extended behind-the-scenes conversations with our guests. Check it out at www.bumpintheroad.us. Christina Kraft is a doctor turned healer. When her body could no longer practice dentistry, she was forced to close her practice. What would she do? Christina enrolled in Andrew Weil Center for Integrative Medicine. Now she is working to create a medical practice that integrates mind, body, east and west to help people find balanced health. Please welcome Christina Kraft to Bump in the Road. Welcome to Bump in the Road. If you would, tell us your story.
Hi, I am Christina Kraft. I am a dentist that has retired from clinical practice. I started practicing dentistry in 2009, so I've been in dental medicine now for 20 years in one way or another. I had a real big awakening moment where the universe, in the form of sickness and injury, came in and said, this isn't the right thing for you. So I started to get sick practicing dentistry. I wasn't sleeping. I was having trouble digesting food, so I wasn't eating very well. My practice was growing. It was doing wonderful. I was helping so many people with so many things and really giving everything I had to my patients, perhaps giving all that I had to my patients and not keeping any for myself. That started manifesting in my thyroid failing and my adrenals shutting down and lack of sleep and lack of the ability to digest food very well. And I kept practicing anyway. I was having chest pains, heart palpitations, anxiety attacks, and I was still practicing because I was helping people. But then my hands started to break down, and my ability to practice dentistry without even more physical pain in my hands really was the sign that said, you're done. It's time for you to stop. You cannot do this anymore. You have the will, but you have the pain, and it's time to stop. So 2 hand surgeries later, because the first one helped some, but it wasn't really the thing that was wrong. I tried to go back to part-time practice after I'd sold my practice with another dentist, and quickly all of the lack of sleep, lack of ability to sleep, and digestive issues and stress and pain in my hands started coming back. And I realized that this is not the right thing. So while I was healing from my surgery, I decided to go back to school because I was seeing these patients and I was seeing all these diseases in their mouths when I was still practicing. And I didn't know what they were and I didn't know how to help them, but I was seeing them and smelling them. Unfortunately, that's something that you notice in the mouth. And I wanted to know more and I wanted to do better as a dentist, as a doctor. So I went back to school and began studying integrative medicine through the Andrew Weil Center for Integrative Medicine at the University of Arizona. And this is a program that's more directed towards MDs and DOs. And I think they've had something like 5 dentists in 20 years go through the program. But I really wanted to know more, and I wanted to do an integrative medicine program that was not for dentists, but was instead more broad for doctors in general. So I did that, and I became a yoga instructor without being able to put my hands on the ground, which taught me a lot about modifying for your own body. And I started to see the world in a different way. I then went and started working for fun, mostly at Miraval Wellness Resort in Tucson, Arizona, where I live, and started taking people out on hikes and mountain bike rides and teaching them about the desert and speaking in front of people, and started to see the way that my words had power and I could help people with my words, not just with my surgical ability, not just with my diagnostic skills. I was learning about integrative medicine and all of these different ways that healing happens through mind, body, and spirit. And I was starting to put those into action with the people I was seeing and working with and teaching them about the beauty of nature around them. And all of this is wonderful. So I decided I want to help people in another way. I thought I was going to go back and become a integrative dentist and open an integrative dental practice, which is very needed. But my hand wouldn't let me. I went back part-time and it couldn't even do that. So I couldn't open a practice in that way. But my words had power. So I decided, and I really, really, one of my core values is my need to help other people. So I decided to go back again through the Andrew Weil Center for Integrative Medicine and become an integrative health and wellness coach. I'm most of the way through that program now, and I have used the things that I've been learning in that program to help motivate people for positive behavior changes for themselves, their health, and their life. And I'm helping people in that way now. I'm becoming a health coach, and I'm building an integrative health and wellness practice around health coaching. And I'm really looking forward to getting to help a lot of people and heal a lot of people in a totally different way.
How do people, or actually I should say, what is the path that many people take in order to seek out a more integrative practice?
So that's actually a little bit of a difficult path because integrative doctors are few and far between. If you want to see if you're going to a traditional or allopathic Western medicine model, if you look for a DO instead of an MD, in theory, they should be a little bit more in line with the integrative principles based on their training. But you can also go through the University of Arizona Integrative Medicine program, and they list the doctors that have completed the training, and you can look them up. So a lot of people are doing telehealth now, so you might be able to see a doctor in a different location, or you can see if there's any that are anywhere near where you are. And the theory with integrative health or integrative medicine is not that one doctor is going to be all of your answers. That one doctor is going to be able to have knowledge of all the different ways that medicine can help you, not just allopathic, not just surgery, but also traditional Chinese medicine, acupuncture, Ayurveda, mind-body medicine, nutrition, which doctors don't learn anything about in medical school, like hardly anything. There's so much more that we can do to make ourselves healthy rather than just managing symptoms through taking a pill. And an integrative medicine doctor and being able to find one through the University of Arizona's online search system is a great way to find a new way to be healthy, especially if you have a chronic condition, because allopathic or regular Western medicine does not do very well at treating chronic conditions.
Did you turn to integrative medicine when you were going through all of your health issues?
I did. I started with Western medicine with my hand. I saw 4 different hand specialists before I finally found one that would listen to me, which was really frustrating when you go to the surgeons and say, I'm having trouble doing surgery and with my hands and doing dental surgeries. I'm really scared and it hurts. Can we please do imaging and find out what's going on? And being brushed off. One doctor even, when I told him this, said, well, I don't need to x-ray or do an MRI on your hand. You just need to see a psychologist. And I went out to my car, proceeded to go out to my car and bawl my eyes out for 4 hours before I finally realized it was so bad. It wasn't about me. I found a different doctor and finally got the Western medicine that helped actually heal the bony growths that were in my hand impinging on nerves and tissues or remove them. But then I got acupuncture. I turned to yoga. And one of the most important things about my healing process was not just healing the bony structures and nerves and tissue in my hand. It was about learning to see my injury as a gift. When I first started my yoga teacher training, right after my surgeries, I wasn't able to put my hands on the ground. I couldn't even put my palms together, let alone clap my hands or do a down dog or a plank. And the instructor of the program said he'd been through an injury and he was gifted this injury. And I said, oh my gosh, I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, injury gift. Yeah, right. What, the injuries are awful. They ruin your life. And I was always so afraid of injury. And I had it. I'd had the worst thing happen. I'd lost my career. I'd lost my ability to make that income that I had strove to meet so that I didn't have financial insecurity like I grew up with. And that was all gone. And so when he said injuries are gift, I was mad. I was so angry at him. So through sitting with what I was going through and finding ways around it and alterations and ways that I could still do this thing that I loved. And also starting to see how sick I was and having the other parts of my body heal because this injury had given me the signal to stop was really groundbreaking for me. I understood that my injury too was a gift. And if I had not found acupuncture and moved the energy through my hand and through the rest of my body, or yoga and used my mind to change my mindset and my viewpoint and my body, I would not be able to help people the way I'm going to be able to help people now or myself.
What is the connection between yoga and healing?
Ooh, that's a good question. Yoga is really good for prevention of disease, but it's also through movement and breath work and living a yogic path, which I am working on and struggling on. I'm not very far on that path, but I am walking as much as I can of it. Seeing the world around you in a different way, being present and being mindful. I would say mindfulness is one of the biggest parts of it. I imagine mindfulness in being able to see yourself, actually see yourself, not see yourself in the mirror, but being able to sit and breathe and look at your thoughts. Not just have your thoughts, but to imagine yourself maybe turning 90 degrees from yourself and look at the thought you're having and think about it. So it's like two people thinking in your head, and saying, is this serving you? Does this thought serve you? Is this path helping you? Yes or no? What's a different way you could view this or a way around this? So it's complicated and good. And then with the asana, the practice, which is what most people think of when they think of yoga, is stretching. It's one of the best ways to treat low back pain, which is the reason most people go to the ER in this country, either heart attacks or low back pain, and then diabetes, getting limbs removed, unfortunately, from that horrible disease process that so many people are going through right now. So yoga increases blood flow. It creates balance and stability as we age, which is so important. I keep hearing doctors or patients or people come to me and say, oh, I'm a woman in my 50s. I need to eat all of the protein because if I don't eat the protein, I'm going to lose my muscle mass. And so I need to eat all of this protein. Well, actually, eating protein doesn't allow you to keep muscle mass. It just means you're eating protein. Exercising and doing strength and mobility work allows you to build muscle and keep muscles so that you don't fall and break your hip when you're older. Not just eating protein. It's an amazing thing people don't realize. So yoga, you can, I think, can do. Go ahead.
No, you touch on two really important things. One is, and you're kind of alluding to it, is the quieting of your mind. Mm-hmm. And the reason I think that's important is until you quiet your mind, you can't witness your thoughts. And until you can witness your thoughts, you can't change them.
Until you can witness your thoughts, you can't change them. You're right. And sometimes that witnessing doesn't have to be trying to sit for an hour and quiet your mind. It can be in the space of a breath. You breathe a lot in yoga.
I think breath is a really important part of it, actually. I started off doing TM, transcendental meditation, which I still do, but more and more I'm finding I'm using breath in my meditations. And I think it's very, very powerful.
It is. Our breath is one of the interesting systems that works in our body. We don't have to think about breathing. But if you do, the things that you can affect and do to your body and your mind. There's something that Andrew Weil, his favorite breathwork exercise that I really love too is something called a 4-7-8 breath. And a lot of people know it. And if you don't, it's where you, through your nose, breathe into the count of 4. And then you hold your breath for 7 seconds. And then you breathe out through your mouth to the count of 8. And you repeat this at least 4 times, and you can do it as many times a day as you want, or more than 4 breaths if you want. And the effect that this has is it activates your parasympathetic nervous system. And when that nervous system is activated, it's your rest and digest and befriend system. So we live in this world where we're constantly in adrenaline response. And doing this breath shuts off that adrenaline response and lets you have the ability to hopefully still your mind. Because when you're in full adrenaline, fight or flight panic, your mind will not be able to still. You've got too many physiologic systems going on. And our world purposefully activates that system because we're too overstimulated. And that also, using that system is how people and marketing uses our thoughts and emotions to sell us things. So our world is designated to activate our adrenaline response and our dopamine response to be able to sell us things, unfortunately. And taking back your breath and taking back the control of your nervous system and taking back your health can help still your mind and help you live a more full life, I believe.
I think learning to still your mind is one of the most profound things you can learn in your lifetime. I think it's just absolutely game changing. And it goes back to what you mentioned earlier, which was about changing your perspective on things. I think pivoting your perspective is another skill we all need to cultivate. I think you can take any life event and tell it 10 different ways. You can tell it from a perspective of anger, of guilt, of happiness, of possibility, of you name your path. And I think just the simple exercise of retelling your story from different perspectives is so powerful because it makes you realize that your thoughts are not reality. You can tell your story any way you want. And again, we go back to, what do you choose?
That's true. Your thoughts are not your reality, but your thoughts are your reality. What do you choose? When I told my story to people about how my hand didn't allow me to practice dentistry, I've told my story a lot to a lot of people because people would ask on these 2 or 5 hour hikes I take people on through Miraval. What's your story? What do you do? Oh, I'm a dentist. I can't practice anymore, and I had to retire, and it's sad, and I'm doing this, and I'm trying to heal. Okay, that was my story a couple of years ago when I first started this, and now that I have truly come to see my injury as a gift, I start the story with, well, I was gifted this injury and it allowed me to stop doing a thing that was this practice, this life that was making me really sick and unhappy. And now I get to spend my life full doing these things that I love. And I'm learning to help people in new ways, which is my calling. 2 completely different stories, 2 completely different people. And if I hadn't had that big moment that a lot of us are gifted with where everything falls apart, I don't think I'd like myself very much right now. I think I might have been dead from a heart attack or a stroke from all of the stress if I hadn't had that moment in life where everything needed to change.
And it did.
And it did. Oh boy, did it.
It was such a dramatic change. Talk a little bit about Andrew Weil's institute, if you will. I think what he's doing is so brilliant and so needed. What are some of the things you study?
Oh, it's so much. It's so much. For me as a dentist, it was going back through medical school essentially again, which was great because I always kind of wanted to do that. But they start off the program with what is integrative medicine, and it's treating a patient as a whole, looking at all of their past, all of their current, everything that they're doing in their lifestyle that's causing these problems, and then using all of the different modalities throughout history of medicine through traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurveda, mind body, and even allopathic, because sometimes, frequently, you can put them all together and create better healthcare. So you start the program learning about that, and then they go through a big section on doctor burnout, physician burnout, because most of the people find their way to that program because they've been practicing medicine and they're seeing, boy, this isn't working. Boy, I'm doing the things I was taught to do in medical school, but I'm not really helping people. All I'm doing is figuring out the diagnosis and giving them symptom management, or I'm doing a surgery and it's helping some. So the Andrew Weil integrative program focuses on research-based evidence. So everything that you learn in that program, from acupuncture, which we actually have acupuncture training, to nutrition, to breast cancer care, prostate cancer care, is all backed by research. Like, you read a section and it's not like, here's this, here's how you treat it because we say so. No, it's here's this, here's all the ways that everyone's treating this disease differently, and here's the evidence of how each one of these things works. And by the way, it's going to work different for each person. So if this doesn't work, try this. If this doesn't work, involve other doctors who have more knowledge than you, and use everyone's minds together in an integrative approach to help people.
How do you take all that knowledge and fit it into the proverbial 6-minute doctor visit? Or is this just going to break that model?
That model is broken already. It's not working. It's not only working, not only not working. Is that a correct vernacular? I know. Not working for the patients. It's not working for the physicians. Physician burnout rate is higher. Like, I talk to so many doctors that come to Miraval to decompress, and every single one of them says they're burned out. I have not met a doctor in my life within the last 10 years that doesn't say, oh, you're a doctor, and then it's like, you're in the club, oh, you're burned out and unhappy too. I have not met one. I've met some medical school residents that haven't started practicing yet. They're still excited, but because they're not in that system yet. They're not in that 6-minute patient visit yet, where you get 15 minutes, right, per visit. That's what the insurance company allots you, but that's not with the doctor. That's with the nurse and getting all of your vitals, and then you get the doctor visit for 6 minutes, and there's no way you can get even a patient's health history, even find out what's going on in that amount of time. Integrative medicine, unfortunately, is something that insurance companies are not frequently paying for yet. Over time, I believe they will be. You might be able to find some correlation between the two, but an integrative medicine initial consult is going to last at least an hour, and you're going to dive down into all of the things that you do, perhaps go into epigenetics, which is how the things that happens in your life and your parents' life and even your life when you were in the womb, how that affects all of the genes that are expressed in your body to create your health or create your disease, and what you can do to work with that to improve it. So no, it doesn't fit into a 6-minute model. That was a very long answer for a short question. Sorry.
Yeah, doctor burnout is really just such a disservice to humanity on multiple levels. It's a disservice to all these hardworking, bright people who choose to go into medicine. It's a disservice to their patients and their families. It's a lose-lose. Lose-lose models don't work.
No, they work for the people that are squeezing every financial drop out of the medical system, but they don't work for the people in it, which is all of us.
How do you reconcile? If you move towards functional medicine, it seems to me you're looking at reduced incomes. But with all the debts and things that young doctors particularly have coming out of school and residency, can they afford to make that change, that jump?
Well, I couldn't without practicing within one of the biggest dental groups in the country. And I used that, working in that for several years, to pay off my student debt. But when you first come out of medical school, you have been, or dental school, or any kind of school like that, or it's my story, I don't know everyone else, but you've been taught so much. There's so much to learn that is the base knowledge of how to actually be a doctor in today's society. And you know so much, you feel like you know so much. So you just want to go out and use that knowledge. So you do the best you can. And then you start to notice what you're doing isn't actually having the effects that maybe it should, or you start to get burned out. But you're trapped by all the debt. And that's the other story I hear. I really want to go and do this integrative model. And I'm taking some of the other doctors that were in the program with me. I'm doing this now, and I've got a few more years of this job that I hate, so I can pay off my student loans. And then I can open my integrative practice where I actually want to do that. But I don't know if the newer doctors, I know I couldn't I didn't have enough knowledge and base of treating patients and seeing what didn't work to be able to practice in this way when I was brand new. So I don't know exactly if that answers your question, but the short answer is it's really hard. The system also with the cost of education for a job that now everyone's not liking is odd and not working well either.
Making a change like that, even when it's forced upon you, I would guess there's a real identity issue associated with it. I mean, a doctor is a doctor. It's part of your being. It's part of how you interact with the world. What's it like to have to set that aside, to take a slightly different path?
Ooh, that's a hard question and a good one. There's a lot of grief. I think that story I told you about 2 years ago where I would tell people, I can't do this anymore. And I would say I was a retired dentist and, I'm 40. So people look at me and I look a bit young because I live pretty healthy life and I use sunscreen. But people say, oh, you're not old enough to be retired. And for a while, I'm like, yes, I'm retired. I retired young. And I felt like it was a gold star, but I was faking it because I was really sad that I was retired young. But I changed my perspective from being a retired dentist to being a completed dentist. I completed that part of my dental career. I'm still a doctor. I still have the training. I still am going to help people. But now, and someone asked me this question just the other day, well, you're going to be trying to work with Miraval and do a health coach program. Are you going to go by doctor? And I said, no, I don't think I am, because I am. I know I have the training, but I don't know if what doctor means anymore to me and to how people are getting treated in this current model makes me feel good to say that anymore. I'm a healer. I'm a health coach. I'm going to say I'm a doctor turned health coach, maybe. But I feel like I can do more good in that than if I'm just cutting and doing surgery and drilling on teeth and changing bone and tissue all day. That's hard, but there is a grief process. And with any grief process, you go through ups and downs and it's not linear. Some days you're like, this is great, I'm fine with this. And other days you're like, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do anymore. Why? What a world. So I try to mindfully, now that I have been through that process a couple times back and forth over the last couple of years, try to mindfully sit with it and say, hey, self, you're going through that thing. You're doing that thing again. You've already gone through this. You did that. You completed that. It's time to do this other awesome thing. So I think it's just, there's a point that changes where you realize that the world is open to you because you're not something anymore, even if it was a good thing. You get to reinvent. And I realized I just had that moment a couple of days ago. I was working with a private yoga practitioner, working with a private yoga client. And I said, I made a joke about teeth. She's like, oh yeah, you're a dentist. And she leans over. She's like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad that you're not doing that anymore. Your talents were so wasted when you were a dentist. And I just looked at her and I said, that's funny. That's exactly the opposite of what people say, or I've been saying to myself, oh, your talents, your surgical talent, your talent with people and helping people feel comfortable in a dental office, which is really hard, is so wasted because you can't do that anymore. But literally, someone out of the blue told me a different story about myself. And boy, I'm grabbing onto that one.
Well, you know what I would say? I would say you're a doctor turned healer.
I like that. I like your story best. Thank you. I'm going to take that one too.
You can have it. No, it goes back to the fundamentals of medicine, what it's supposed to be about. And that's healing. And I hope that's a trend that's developing because it's a trend that's needed. Allopathic medicine is great. If you need a hip replacement, oh my gosh, there is nothing better than allopathic medicine.
Yes. Or a tooth replaced, honestly, because, hey, we can't regrow those yet. Better if you took care of it before you got to that point. But yes, you're right.
What advice would you have for people who are really unhappy in their lives, or they find themselves boxed in, as you did, by pain or disability? These are such difficult bumps to navigate. If you could give somebody some advice, what would you say?
There is, I'm not a religious type of person, but I would say there is a plan in the universe. There's Fibonacci spirals, there's the organization of atoms, and I believe there's some purpose to your life. You don't know what it is, and you never will. Or maybe you will when you die, depending on what your perspective is, and we don't know what comes then, but there's a purpose for your life. And if you're having this hard thing happen to you, it just means you weren't supposed to be doing that anymore. And while you're in it, hearing that from someone just makes you want to kind of smack them upside the head. But you will eventually, if you think about it, and if you just live day by day and slowly just sit with it and then grow with it and lean into what you can do, lean into what you love, the thing that you're supposed to do next will start to emerge. I spent, during that 2 years or a couple of years of the story, I started to tell people I'm a retired dentist. It started to evolve into I was that, and now I'm just leaning into doing all of the things that I love doing. And I don't know where I'm going yet, which was really not okay for the way that I am. I like to have a plan and a path, but I didn't know where I was going. So my plan was to lean into what you love and let what comes next start to emerge. And it will come. It will come. It probably won't be what you think it's going to be. And it might, and most frequently will be so much better.
Thank you for listening. I hope you'll support this podcast by becoming a Bump 2 subscriber. Buy us a cup of coffee. It's your support that makes this podcast and website possible. I hope you found something in today's podcast that inspires you along your own life's path, because sometimes a bump in the road is actually a portal into a more conscious and meaningful life.